After this morning's flight with Davide, I was back in the cockpit with Greg. Greg and Davide had decided I wasn't ready for a solo attempt and needed more practice. Greg was my flight instructor for hour 20 and he had received the debrief from Davide, so he knew what to expect from me. Davide debriefed me about the items to improve in this afternoon flight. He also briefed Greg, who would be my instructor in hour 19. Potentially this was the flight before the solo and I wanted to make it as good as possible. In hour 19, I try all exercises again, regular, flapless and glide approaches. Greg might throw in an engine failure here and there. Compared to the morning flight, we now had slightly stronger variable winds and a few gliders to stay away from.
Camden Terminal Information Charlie, runway 06, gliding operations in progress, wind a variable 6 knots, cab OK, temperature 26, QNH 1018, on first contact with Camden Tower Ground, notify receipt of information Charlie.
Greg would be my passenger unless I did something silly, in which case he would become an instructor again. Startup, taxi and run-up checks were all done well. In total, I completed 8 circuits in this flight. In circuit 1, I had the plane stabilize well near the threshold when a gust wind caused a roll. I was able to re-stabilize and complete a really nice landing. Greg mentioned that I should give flaps more time to retract before applying full throttle for takeoff. I hadn't considered that the flaps are motorized and need time to move from the moment I change the setting by the switch. Circuit 2, speed except in the late final and over the threshold when it was around 60 knots, height, spacing except for a wide final and bump fish were all good enough to result in a very nice landing. This was a noticeable improvement to previous landings. In circuit 3, the landing had a small bounce and slight roll to the right, but not bad aside from that. Circuit 4 was a flapless approach. Remember, plus 5 knots. That's 80 knots on base, 75 knots on final and 70 knots over the threshold. And remember that with higher speeds, it's easy to go wide on the final and not have a sufficient rate of descent to touch down soon after the threshold. All that worked well and the touchdown was good enough. Continuing with circuit 5 with another flapless approach where I entered a final at high airspeed, so I did a go around as there wouldn't be enough time to descend and land safely. In circuit 6, again, I ended up too high and fast on the flapless approach and had to do a go around again. Now let's try again in circuit 7. After listening to an annoyed tower controller telling off a pilot for cutting into his transmission,
Julia Bravo Charlie, downwind for touch and go.
Bravo Charlie, follow the test on final.
Eric, entering the zone over Long Bridge.
Don't worry, they're on final, just so.
You need to listen out. I was transmitting to other aircraft. You've jumped in between. Break, confirm Julia Bravo Charlie, follow the test on final.
Following on final, Julia Bravo Charlie.
I set up the flapless approach. And this time I got a good landing without flaps. It was a small wind. Circuit 8 was the last one for this flight using a normal approach and I managed a very nice landing. This was an interesting flight. Aside from handling the plane in the circuit, I also experienced a very busy circuit and control area. Planes and a lot of radio communications were coming in from north and south. This was the busiest day I remember in Camden since I started training. An explanation for this is that many pilots were eager to return to the planes after 2 weeks of bad weather. I'll be back next week for hour 20. This will be a check for a potential solo in hour 21. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. Just click on the subscribe button below this video. And of course, you can also head over to my detailed flight training log pages on the Tech Explorations website. In these pages, I document in detail all of my experiences and learnings from each one of my training flights. These logs contain a goldmine of information for any aviation student or anyone interested in aviation. Until next time, I wish you clear skies and safe landings.